He who walks alone is often the one carving the path others will follow in silence. Welcome, Ascenders. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever been labeled too quiet, too distant, too serious? Ever felt like people misunderstand your calm for weakness, your solitude for loneliness? Good, because that means they don't see you coming. This world rewards the loud. It celebrates the flashy, but real power, it moves in silence. Real value, it doesn't need to prove itself. Today, I'm not here to tell you that you're different. I'm here to tell you that you're dangerously valuable, and most people don't even realize it yet. This isn't motivational fluff. This is a tactical mirror. You're about to see 11 reasons, real, rare, and raw, that prove you're not just some outlier in the system. You're the glitch they can't debug. You're a freaking catch, and it's time you saw it. So fire up your internal compass, clear the mental clutter, and get ready to rewire how you see yourself. Ascenders, initiate the protocol. Subscribe to Sigma Ascends. This isn't just a channel, it's your recalibration zone. Let's rise. 1. The signal tower effect. Your silence speaks volumes. When most people walk into a room, they try to own it by being the loudest voice. They want to be heard, to be seen, to be validated. But you walk in and observe. You scan, you absorb, you calculate. And in doing so, you create tension, not the awkward kind, but the magnetic kind. You've probably noticed it already. People get slightly uncomfortable when you're quiet too long. They either try to fill the silence or fish for your opinion. Why? Because silence backed by presence disrupts noise. It makes people wonder what you're thinking. They start projecting their insecurities onto your stillness. You don't speak unless you mean it. You don't react unless it's worth it. And when you do finally speak, the room tilts. People listen, not out of habit, but out of respect. You've trained yourself not to waste words, and that's become your weapon. While others exhaust themselves explaining who they are, you let people figure you out. That mystery, that's where your power lives. Your words are rare. Your silence is strategic. You're not just a quiet guy. You're a freaking signal tower. The world moves too fast to think. You pause, you process, you respond, not react. And that makes you unforgettable. 2. Eye of the storm focus. Precision in a world of panic. While everyone's drowning in notifications, jumping from dopamine hit to dopamine hit, your mind is locked in like a laser. You're not avoiding distractions. You've trained your mind to filter them. You know that attention is currency, and you're not handing yours out like a free sample at a mall. You've probably been called too intense or too obsessed when you're deep in focus. Good. That means you're doing something right. While they're scrolling, you're sharpening. While they're multitasking themselves into mediocrity, you're locking in on the kill. Sigma males don't chase shiny things. They chase results. You know how to enter deep work mode, no permission needed. You don't just work hard. You work alone, in a zone where time disappears and mastery begins. You know how to sustain boredom. That's huge. Most people need stimulation every few seconds. You can sit in silence, build in silence, and grind in silence, and come out with output that shatters expectations. And let's not even talk about your patience. You don't rush your craft. You build it brick by brick, knowing full well that excellence takes time, and time bends for those who control it. While others are screaming for attention, you're locked into purpose. That's not just rare, it's deadly. 3. Anti-hype authenticity. You're not selling, you're being in a world starving for clout. You're full. You don't jump on every trend. You don't alter your identity to fit the algorithm. You don't rehearse authenticity, you live it. That alone puts you in a different category. Most people walk through life hoping they're liked. They water themselves down for comfort, add filters to be palatable, and build personalities like brand kits. But you're raw. You're unpolished in the best way possible. You're not trying to appeal, you're trying to align. There's a certain peace in knowing you're not faking it. You don't need likes to feel valid. You don't need followers to feel relevant. You don't need applause to feel real. That makes you unshakable. People notice when someone moves without seeking eyes. It's unsettling, in a good way, because deep down everyone wishes they could move like you, grounded, unapologetic, and free from the hype machine. This doesn't mean you don't adapt or evolve. It means you evolve from within, not from pressure. You don't upgrade yourself for likes. You upgrade because you're building your own version of legacy. This authenticity is a filter. It repels the superficial and attracts the meaningful. You may not have the loudest circle, but you have the realest one. And that, Ascender, is priceless. They say, be yourself. You don't even need to be told. You are yourself, fully, quietly, and with zero compromise. That's not just rare, that's untouchable. The unavailable aura. Scarcity is a superpower. You ever notice how the less available you are, the more people want access? That's not arrogance. That's energy economics. You don't show up everywhere. You don't text back immediately. You don't open your doors unless there's a reason. And people feel that. They feel that you don't need anyone to complete your day. You're already whole. That makes you scarce. And in a world of constant accessibility, scarcity hits different. It creates demand. It creates mystery. It makes your presence carry weight. While others give away their energy on tap, you charge for access, not in money, but in standards. You don't ghost people. You just don't entertain what doesn't feed your frequency. You're not rude. You're calibrated. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to reach for the right reasons. Because access to you has to be earned, and when people realize that, they either rise to your level or walk away. That boundary, it's not a wall, it's a filter, and it's built from years of self-respect, self-discipline, and knowing your damn worth. You're not hiding from the world. You're choosing what's worth your attention, and that, my friend, is what makes you a freaking catch. 5. Mental minimalism. Clean mind, sharp blade. The average person wakes up and checks their phone before they even check in with their own thoughts. Notifications dictate their mood. Drama defines their focus. Noise becomes their normal. But you've decluttered your mental space like a warrior sharpens his blade. You don't let chaos rent space in your head. You've stripped away the mental junk, the pointless debates, the fake urgency, the emotional spam. You've built an inner firewall that blocks distraction and allows only what matters. This gives you something most men will never have, mental space to think. While others are thinking in fragments, you're thinking in systems. While they're reacting, you're designing. You're not mentally busy, you're mentally clean. And in that clarity, you move like a tactician, not a follower. This is why you make fast decisions without panic, why your presence calms rooms, why people come to you when things fall apart, because you've mastered what they haven't, the art of inner stillness. Mental minimalism is not about being detached, it's about being selective. You don't consume everything. You don't comment on everything. You don't over-explain. You operate on signal, not noise. You're not just thinking less, you're thinking better, and that's a power they won't understand until it's too late. 6. The exit plan instinct. You play the room, but you own the map. There's a skill most people never develop because they're too busy trying to fit in. It's the ability to be in the room, but not of the room. To operate among people, yet always know where the exits are, not just physically but mentally, emotionally, even financially. That's you. You never walk into a space without assessing its layout. You read body language like it's code. You spot the unstable energy before it unravels, and while others are trying to blend in, you're planning the optimal move, the strategic response, the cleanest exit. You don't commit to ideas blindly. You don't follow trends just because they're hot. You don't stay in situations because it's comfortable. You calculate, constantly, quietly. People mistake this for being distant or cold. But the truth? You just know the cost of staying too long in the wrong place. You understand that freedom isn't gifted, it's engineered. That's why you always keep a plan B, and C, and probably a D you haven't told anyone about. This instinct isn't paranoia, it's self-trust. It's the awareness that nothing is permanent, and control is earned by being ready before you need to be. Whether it's a toxic job, a failing relationship, or a collapsing social scene, you've already rehearsed your next move before the first crack appears. That level of foresight, that's not luck, that's design. You're not just moving through life, you're mapping it, and that makes you impossible to trap. 7. Wolf logic. You think like a lone strategist, not a follower. Most people think in terms of validation. What will people say? Will they approve? Am I doing it right? You think in terms of outcome. Does this serve my goal? Is this efficient? Will this cost me peace? That's wolf logic. You don't make decisions emotionally, you make them with precision. And that doesn't mean you lack feeling. It means you refuse to let feeling lead. That's a level of control most people never touch. You don't need a cheer squad. You don't need groupthink. You don't ask, what are we doing? Because you're not a follower of we. You're a one-man think tank. This doesn't mean you're arrogant. It means you're self-sourced. You trust your gut more than gossip. You value inner clarity more than outer applause. And that independence, it radiates, even when you're silent. People don't always understand you, and that's fine. They don't need to, because you're not here to be understood. You're here to execute. And when you move like a lone wolf. Clean, quiet, strategic. You avoid unnecessary conflict. You don't bark, you strike. You don't dominate to be seen, you dominate to build. Wolf logic means you don't need a pack to feel powerful. You are the power. And when you do connect with others, it's not out of loneliness, it's out of choice. That's the difference between surviving and commanding your space. 8. Depth over display. You don't flex, you build. Let's make something clear. Real power doesn't look like leased cars, fake watches, or borrowed aesthetics. It looks like quiet skills, built assets, and self-respect that doesn't need a spotlight. While others flex, you forge. You're not out here trying to convince anyone you're winning, because you know that the loudest guy in the room is usually the brokest one spiritually, emotionally, or mentally. You've got nothing to prove, because what you're building proves itself. That might mean your Instagram is empty, but your Google Drive is full of plans. Your closet isn't flashy, but your mind is stacked with frameworks. You don't own clout, you own leverage. You invest in depth, in building skills that compound, in strengthening your mind, your circle, your body, and your mission. You're not trying to look successful for strangers. You're trying to be free in the real world. And you know what? That subtlety, that lack of attention-seeking, that's what makes you stand out. People feel your presence before you even speak, because your energy isn't rented, it's refined. They'll laugh at you for not being flashy, until they work for you, until they need you, until they realize you were building while they were flexing. You're not in the showbiz of masculinity, you're in the architecture of legacy. 9. You're an energy gatekeeper. You don't just protect your space, you curate it. You ever notice how some people let anyone into their lives like it's an open bar at a college party? Not you. You don't just protect your energy, you curate your surroundings like a high-level strategist. You treat your time, your peace, and your emotional bandwidth like a non-renewable resource. Because it is. You know what drains you. You've seen what chaos looks like, and now you don't entertain it. You can spot low-vibration people before they even speak. The complainers, the energy vampires, the passive-aggressive energy leeches. You feel them in your gut, and you don't let them in. You move with emotional encryption. People can't read you unless you allow them to. You don't overshare. You don't over-explain. You give people what they've earned access to, not what they demand. And let's talk relationships. You don't just date for vibes. You measure alignment, emotional intelligence, accountability. You'd rather be alone than build with someone who doesn't understand emotional hygiene. Most people are addicted to being liked. You're addicted to being clear. You don't fake connections. You filter them. You're not cold. You're calculated. And that makes you dangerous in the best way. So when someone enters your space, they feel it. There are standards here. There's discipline here. There's value here. And that energy, it doesn't just protect you. It attracts the few who are worth your time. 10. You're built for solitude, not isolation. You recharge in quiet. You strike in clarity. Here's something most people get completely wrong. Solitude and isolation are not the same thing. Isolation is what happens when you're lost. Solitude is what happens when you're aligned. You thrive in solitude. You don't need background noise to think. You don't panic when the room is empty. You come alive in quiet, because in solitude there's no audience, no filters, no pressure to perform. Just you, your mind, and your mission. You use silence like a forge. You refine your thoughts. You audit your weaknesses. You rebuild your strategy. And when you do return to the world, you move like a weapon that's been sharpened behind closed doors. Others crumble without constant connection. You expand. They fear being alone. You trust yourself too much to fear that, because you've done the work. You've faced your inner chaos. You've cleaned the mess and built mental stillness. Solitude isn't your weakness. It's your training ground. It's where you grow in ways no crowd can teach you. So no, you're not disconnected. You're deeply connected to yourself, and that's the connection most people will never know. 11. You break systems quietly. You don't rebel loudly. You rewrite the playbook in silence. Here's what they don't see coming. While everyone's busy trying to fit into the system, you've been building your own blueprint. You don't rebel for attention. You don't throw tantrums against the norm. You do something much more dangerous. You detach. You observe the game. You learn the rules. Then you step back and build outside the system. And when they finally notice you, it's not because you tried to fit in. It's because you outgrew what they thought was the top. You don't ask for permission. You take responsibility. You don't need institutions to tell you you're worthy. You prove it in the shadows, then let the results speak. While others are looking for shortcuts, you're building tunnels. While they're chasing attention, you're earning leverage. While they're loud, you're exact. You don't move like a disruptor, you move like an architect. And that's why, when people finally see you, it feels like you came out of nowhere. But you didn't. You were underground, evolving. They just weren't ready for your arrival. You didn't break the system, you outdated it. So here's the truth, ascenders. You've been wondering if you're out of place, if you're too intense, too quiet, too private, too driven. Let's kill that thought today. You're not too anything. You're right on time. You're just not part of the default setting. You're playing a longer game, a quieter game, a game that most people don't even know exists. And that's exactly why you're a freaking catch. Not because you're perfect, not because you're trendy, but because you're real in a world full of performances. Keep moving like the storm you are. Stay sharp, stay silent, stay strategic. And if this video hits something inside you, don't just vanish into the scroll abyss. Subscribe to Sigma Ascends, because this channel doesn't feed noise, it feeds the evolution. This was not content. This was your reminder. Now get out there and stay dangerous.